taking full advantage of that contractor relationship because he's earning finances off Solomon and all the other Asiatics. And she continues, and he does nothing for you, Solomon. You are no better than prized livestock. And then she ends her statement with the most with these powerful words. So you are settling into your role as Mr. Platt. You see, because when they took Solomon and he acquiesced to that contract, it's a new role, a new identity, a totally different character, the slave character that he has to play. And Elijah tells him, you are settling into your role as Mr. Platt. So, isn't it interesting that based upon the movie, all those Asiatics who were playing so-called slaves in those character roles, that was not their natural. They basically all knew that they were playing roles and did it very well as a survival tactic.
Right.
So, which means that during the time when you're talking survival tactics, it's war. That's warfare. So, which means that there was war going on. So, one side chose to in order to survive, decided that it was important to play a role, become something that they're not, in order to survive. Survive what? The war. See, so this is very interesting because it brings up new questions for us that we have to currently analyze. The whole issue of why did some of our ancestors choose to play this role as a survival tactic? Who were they fighting? Because as I stated before, a slave can't defeat an Asiatic. Only an Asiatic can defeat an Asiatic. And so we're going to get into that more as well. So those are the statements that I want to springboard from, use as a springboard into deeper issues here. But, any questions or anything that you or anyone would like to ask before I move on?
Well, there is a caller that's been holding for a while. I do want to open up the line, and then I do have several questions.
Sure.
Caller 205-617, welcome to Civil Alert. Thank you for your patience. Please state your name, your question, your comment, and where you're calling from.
My name is Kerry. I'm calling from Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, welcome, Kerry. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Well, very well.
Well, great. I'm enjoying your guest tonight. He's really, really good. The whole African story is true. That's a lie. We was brought over here in the bow of the ship. I would agree with him on that. But what I wanted to ask him is, what does he think the Africa story? These movies that are coming out today are nothing but us being slaves. We're slaves, and when you look at other people that are producing movies, they're producing movies where they're conquering space, conquering the ocean, blah, blah, blah. And our movies are constantly showing us and our children that you can't do that. It's always that we're slaves and that we're broke down and that we're the help and that we're the butler, especially in these times in America today. How do you think that plays on the psyche of the so-called African American or Negro community? Well, yeah, that's a very, very excellent point. And it's something I've been talking about and cognizant about, because what they're doing now is trying to reprogram a new generation of our youth. You see, because the truth has been coming out. And they're fully aware of that. You see, so, back 25, 30 years ago,
they still had a very strong ironclad hold on our minds. And that whole color story of us being the slaves, of us being a docile, that everybody defeated us and that we're weak and a naturally servile people. And so that whole cover story was very strong. But see, just like the Prophet Noble Ali said, that the truth will come out. And it's been coming out based upon the Moorish movement in the Americas, which has been foretold generations ago. And so they're fully aware of that. So what they're doing is countering, because if you go back 20, 30 years ago, the Afrocentric story about us being slaves and we had this enemy, the so-called white man who did all these terrible things to us, is dead now. You see, so when the Moorish information started coming out in the 90s heavily, it basically destroyed that cover story. You see, so now what they have to do is try to counter that by, and if you notice, like you said, The Butler, The Help, this movie here, 12 Years a Slave, and they're even bringing back Roots. They're bringing back Roots in a new modern television series, Roots. They're bringing that back now. So it's this backlash against what we've been putting out about the truth. And so they're trying to make sure that they can still have an iron grip on the minds of our children. So they're trying to reprogram, and they're bringing back the same slave program to reprogram our children's minds. That's what they're doing. But they're not going to be successful. See, so these movies are just counter movies by them to reprogram future generation of our youth.
So you don't see, well, so how do you see that where that's going? How do you see where that's working? Is it working? I mean, if you look around the community.
No, it's not working. But yeah. Well, see, it's not working because they're putting out a lot of it. You see, now, of course, it's working to the effect that still most of our people are still under the sorcery. But, we've been chipping away. You see, for example, like you have these articles and there's this huge backlash against the Moorish movement in the Americas. For example, the Southern Poverty Law Center put out an article basically slandering us. But you got to remember, who is the Southern Poverty Law Center? It's run by those that consider themselves Jews. And so when they have a sense that the consciousness is rising, what are they going to do? They're going to inform their other Jews in the media about this the rise is happening. So then they who control media in the Hollywood movies will start countering it. And that they're putting these movies out now. You see, so but the movie is a war.
Go ahead. But the movies have been coming out all along. Most of the movies that we get is jigaboo stuff. I mean, the movie. I mean, it's not like it's stopped and now it's coming back on. These movies have been going on. I'm just seeing as I go around the country. I'm just seeing, and this is what's weird. Everybody acts the same. Where it used to go, where if you used to go to Philadelphia, the people in Philadelphia had a way they did things, or New York, they had a way that they did things that was opposite or different from the people in California, the people in the state of Washington. Even they would have their own, whatever it was, Chicago would have their own way. Now it's like everybody is the same. Everybody likes the same stuff. The kids act the same. This thing where the guys are walking down wearing their pants sagging, I'm asking them, well, isn't that uncomfortable? Why are you making life uncomfortable for yourself? And when you ask them that, they look up like, damn, this is uncomfortable. So I'm saying these movies, I know they're programming us, but what extent do you think they're having on us where it's just making us act like total zombies?
Well, I mean, that's always been the intent, and they've been successful in doing that, programming us to a certain way. But now, if you want to talk about the trends, the whole slave trend is a new phenomenon, recycled. Because if you go back to the late 80s, early 90s, what trends, what themes did they put out about us? Well, in the late 80s and early 90s, it was the violent drug theme. See, during that time, it wasn't a slave theme during that time. You remember New Jack City, Dead Presidents? Because that was the parallel with the whole hip-hop gangster hip-hop from L.A., NWA, and all the whole gangster trend for that programming. So they would have the movies model that, and so you had the violent drug movies during that time. You see, so, and then also you'd have in the early 90s, along with the drug movies, you had the kind of infidelity type love story themes during the time as well in the 90s. Love Jones, the movie with, what was it, Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence.
Boomerang.
Boomerang. So the trends are different. So if you notice now, the trend now is not the drug violent movies. It's not the comedian movies. It's not the love story where there's infidelity. It's the slave servant story. So we got to ask ourselves, why is this trend happening now? Because it's based upon the consciousness rising up out of us, and we're actually saying, well, wait a second, we're not who they told us who we are. So that's why they had to counter the consciousness rise with the slave program again.
Well, cool, brother. I'm loving your program.
Right. So this is a new trend that they're bringing back, based upon the consciousness level of our people. See, so which is different than in the 90s and late 80s. And they're fully aware of that, so they got to counter that. And that's why the new trend is the servile type themes now that they're coming out with.
And in addition to keeping people asleep, I see it as if they're trying to produce the element of fear. So for those people that may be waking up, when they do see all of the propaganda from the media, and then just as Amani had pointed out in the scene where he was saying that the brother told Solomon, just, be quiet, don't let them know you know how to read, don't show them that you really know who you are and that you're a free man. So that's pretty much, I think, subliminally instilling fear, where right to this day, some people can know the truth about their birthright, and they may have went and talked to their elders in their family, dug up their research, and was able to pinpoint their genealogy being connected right here to North America as far back as 1790, 1780, and sometimes the late 1600s. But being that they're still kind of scared or have these doubts in their brains, they would never say that they're Aboriginal American or that they're an Almorican or that they're a Moor. They would never, ever dare say that. So I think that also, too, is just instilling that fear to keep the program in, to say, look, you better shut up. You better not try to come and proclaim and announce who you are, publish your stuff on the record and demonstrate and start teaching people more and more. Because I've even know of a story where there's a lady, she's been teaching the youth, from the ages of 9 to 11, and getting them more acclimated to the truth about this hidden history, and she's been catching hell for moving in that direction. So I definitely, I see, what both of you are saying, and Amani, I see what you're saying about how it's like it's a structured program to suppress the consciousness rising. But Carrie, I thank you for calling in. We do have another caller that's been holding, so feel free to press 1 if you have any other questions that you want to ask after we speak to everyone else.
Okay, cool.